Hello, welcome back to another episode of Awakening with Soulspirational. My name is Tish, and in my last episode, I talked about psychometry, which is feeling into the history of an object. So maybe it was a family ring, and you took some time to feel into it to see if you can pick up on the energy of the different people that may have worn that ring. Maybe it was just one person or many people, or a scarf, or whatever it may have been. Today, I want to talk about the clairs. So, for example, clairaudience, which is clear hearing, clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. I also want to talk some about clairsentience, which is feeling, or claircognizance, just knowing. So maybe you get a hunch about something. I really believe that all of us are born with all of these. Kind of see it as an extension to our physical five senses. They extend out psychically. And just like in the physical realm, you know, we may have a better sight than what our hearing would be. Same thing psychically, where you may notice that you can see things more than you can hear them, or vice versa. Oftentimes, a lot of us don't even pay attention to this, or very surface level. And I wanted to just kind of share some things with you today in this episode, maybe to stop and get you to think a little more deeply in those moments when your intuition, maybe tells you to avoid a particular street, for example, as you're driving into work. So I'm also going to share some things in which you can use to practice at home. So maybe you've been interested in honing your clairvoyance, for example. So I'll give you some information here today. In class, I do an introductory class to psychic development about the clairs. But I wanted to give you some information today so you can start practicing at home if you choose to. So when we start, to me, the first step is just acknowledging and accepting the fact that we were born with these skills, with these abilities. And we can put it in the sense that, we'll talk about going to work again, where your intuition may pop up and say, hey, I think, we should actually be taking a different road than this one. And I think most of us, if we look back, we can recognize the times where we didn't listen to our own intuition. We wound up staying on that particular road, and then we're caught up in traffic or something else. Whereas when we listened to the intuition and maybe we took a different street to get to work, we found out that we avoided, some kind of construction or maybe even an accident. And then we hear ourselves saying, oh, thank goodness I listened to myself and I chose to take a different road. So I'm asking you again to just be more open when these things happen, to really start paying more attention if you choose to hone and build upon these skills. So we're going to go through, as I said, some little exercises or some information I'm going to give to you. One of the things, I'm not one of those people that put, some people, oh, they're psychic. To me, we're all psychic. We all have these abilities. So, but I think for the average person, when they think about a psychic, they can see deceased loved ones, or this person can look in and see something that's coming up ahead. Some people will put psychics on a pedestal when really they're just open to the gift that they've been given, that each and every one of us have been given. Also, I think, as I teach psychic development classes, I think that there is a percentage of people that believe that psychics are seeing everything as though it's happening here in the physical world. So maybe you go to see a medium and they are able to connect with past loved ones. Oftentimes, the person coming in, the client, is thinking that the psychic is seeing their loved one as though they're sitting there physically with them. Now, I'm sure that there are some psychics who may very well see that or experience that. My experience with other psychics that I've spoken to, it isn't the flesh and blood scene. They may actually see the individual as they were here in the physical form, but not to where they can actually touch it. They're not seeing it in the physical sense. I consider this to be shifted, a shifted sight. Same thing with hearing, this shifted hearing, this nuance between what is a thought and what is some other kind of message that's coming through. So the more we pay attention to those nuances, to the shifted hearing or the shifted seeing, and the more we recognize that we're probably getting more messages than we even realize. But because we aren't seeing it in the flesh and blood, the tangible, the here and now, the something physical that we can touch, that it must not be true, I'm just making this up, whatever it may be. So I'm going to ask for you to just keep your mind open. When we're talking about clairvoyance, for example, if I were to ask you to close your eyes and picture a red apple on a table, can you see that? Here's another thing. If you can, think about a past wedding, some place where you've been to, where you remember what you wore, or you remember the color of a dress that somebody else wore. And you can see that in your mind's eye. Sometimes it may be like a photo, a picture. And it may even be that we're remembering the pictures that we saw from the wedding. But if you can see in your mind's eye that picture of whatever dress the color of dress that somebody wore, that's what I'm going to ask for you to kind of focus on when it comes to clairvoyance. So let's go back to the simple one of the apple. So if you can see in your mind's eye an apple on a table, I'm going to ask for you to really look at that apple. And where are you seeing it? So now some people will see it just in their mind. They know, they're getting that sense that it's red, or they can see a sense of red, that red apple on the table. Other people working psychically, they may be able to project that image. So when they think about a red apple, they're taking it from their mind and they're projecting it forward. So they can see the red apple in front of them, wherever that may be. So when we're opening up to our clairvoyance, I'm going to ask for you to keep this analogy with a red apple, because you may be seeing things, but just because they aren't here in the physical sense doesn't mean that they aren't real, doesn't mean that you're not actually seeing what you're seeing. So when I am doing a reading for somebody and I am connecting with a past loved one, sometimes they will come to me and what they looked like when they were alive. So I can see what color hair they had, about what type of bone structure or body type that they had. Sometimes they'll show me their shoes or a purse. That helps me to give me an idea too, sometimes in different eras that I'm going to. But they'll bring it through where I can see them, because then I can relay that information to my client and they'll know whether or not I'm on the right person. When I'm seeing, sometimes I am seeing it as though the past loved one is standing behind or standing next to the person next to the client. There are other times yet where I am, and sometimes I even have to apologize to my clients because I'm looking through them, and I don't mean to be rude about it. It's just I'm actually seeing something over here. So while my eyes are fixed on them, I'm actually looking over here at my peripheral vision because somebody's coming through here. There are other psychics that I know that they will see behind them, almost as though they have eyes in the back of their head kind of thing, or to the side of them. We all see things differently. So I'm just asking you to open up to the possibilities that if you have been wanting to develop your psychic senses, that you may actually be seeing, but because, if it's in your mind that it has to be as though this pen is right here, and that if it isn't this clear and if you can't touch it, then you're not seeing something, that isn't the case. Allow yourself to open up to the possibilities. Now, when we talk about clairaudience with hearing, same thing. To me, it's this shifted hearing. Sometimes people will come through, spirits will come through loud and clear, where I'm trying to keep up as they are talking to me. Other times, it's more they're showing me different visualizations to get me to say certain words to get to the point that they're going to, because we are working within different realms. So trust that. Open that up if you choose to. Clear cognizance, we're talking about that. Again, it's like I mentioned earlier about maybe taking a different road. You just know something, or maybe you know that there's something wonderful up ahead. You don't know what it is, but you just know somewhere inside of you that something wonderful is coming up, or maybe something not so wonderful. And though you don't know what it is, you don't know when it's going to be, you know that something is coming. And honestly, that's where I started as a kid. I just knew. I knew something was coming up, and it was almost uncomfortable because I didn't know when, I didn't know where, I didn't know what it was going to be, and I was a kid, so it was a little unsettling. But again, that's, our intuition pops up, and it kind of will warn us or inform us if we're open, if we go below the surface and just be open to whatever it is that may be coming our way. When we talk about clairsentience, so for me, when I am doing a reading with a past loved one, usually the first thing that comes through is the cause or the trauma that caused the death. So I may be feeling great impact to my chest. I get different feelings within my head for different causes, if it has something to do with that. And I'm okay with that. Some people do not want to feel. I'm all right. I prefer that than some of the other things I could be seeing. So they come through, and that's just a way for me to get the information to the client to validate if the person that they're looking for, if we're on track or not. And clairsentience too, I often think of empaths. When we are feeling the emotions of somebody who is next to us, or maybe we're seeing something on TV and we can feel the pain, the anguish, or the joy and the happiness and the love. Even though it isn't ours, we can feel it. So again, just some things to keep in mind. And then there's also, clear, I think it's gustance, where it's the taste. So you may not be physically eating something, but you may all of a sudden get a taste in your mouth. Maybe it's for grandma's pasta. Maybe, what is this here? The word is clairalience, where it is the smells, the odors. So maybe you're smelling grandma's pasta, or you're tasting it. It could be a sign that grandma's right here with you. And it's a way for her to bring the memory through one of these other senses. Really kind of fascinating. All right, so how can you hone these? Let me give you some examples here. Let's talk about clairaudience first. So maybe you want to be able to hear things better. The more you practice, the more you can discern, again, between what is your thought and what is somebody else's voice coming through, or what is a message that's dropping down for you. So you could probably right now, if I say, think of your favorite song, you could probably go ahead and start hearing it, the lyrics or the music in your mind, even though it isn't playing on the radio or whatever. So one of the things that you can do is you can, whether you go to Pandora or you put on a CD, play just a few seconds of a song, but I'm going to ask for you not to pick a song that has an emotional attachment. So I would suggest avoiding songs with words, because you may find yourself getting sucked into the emotions of that particular song instead of keeping your focus at hand of practicing your clairaudience. So play a few seconds of a song, stop. And again, I'm going to rephrase that. Play a few seconds of music. So maybe classical music, or I like to put on the spa radio channel on Pandora. So play a few seconds, stop, and see if you can recreate it. Play a few seconds, stop, see if you can recreate it. You can do this if you're walking outside and you hear the birds chirping. Stop, can you recreate that? And then pay attention to the difference between the actual music playing and what it sounds like in your mind. So that's one way where you can start to pay attention to the shift or the nuances of clairaudience. When it comes to clairvoyance, I'm going to give you some tips of some ways that you can kind of strengthen that. One of the things that you can do is find a place on a wall, preferably without wallpaper. So just a blank wall. Find a spot to focus on. So avoid, picture frames, especially if they're busy. Find a blank spot on the wall. Fix your eyes on a particular point on the wall. And then when you do that, while you keep your eyes focused, look around your periphery. What's going on around you? So as I'm looking straight into the camera, I can see other elements within the center here. Now, what I'm seeing in my peripheral vision is not as clear, as focused as what I'm seeing when I'm staring into the camera, or if I'm staring into that focal point in the wall. And this is where I was talking about earlier, where sometimes I will find myself looking through a client because as I'm talking to them, all of a sudden something has just popped up in my peripheral vision. So I'm so focused over here that I forget for a moment that I am looking through somebody. So again, I apologize, I avert my eyes, but even while I avert my eyes, I'm still focused on whatever it is over here in my periphery. You may notice different things coming up as you do that. Now, if you want to go into the different realms, there's so much more to it. You want to make sure that you're protected, that you know what you're doing going forward, just so you're safe about it. But to just kind of open things up where you can get different images, maybe insight from your own soul, your own spirit, trying to give you information, you can try this where you're focusing in on the wall. You can also look at, if you light a candle. Now I would suggest at the very tip of the flame or down at the wick so you're not staring directly into the flame itself. And just allow yourself your eyes to fix on that particular part of the candle and allow the other images around it to form. Open yourself up to whatever may be there. And you may even feel like you're kind of going into a trance-like state because you're focusing, your eyes are so locked, and it can be really exciting to see different things pop up or form. And it may even be, you may be one of those that as you're fixated on a particular point of the wall, that you start seeing something back here. It may not even be here. You may even notice at the point at which you're fixated on the wall that something starts to form there. And if you think about, when we are staring up at the clouds and we can see different shapes, different things forming within the clouds, or even looking across into the grass, whatever it may be, allow those visions to come forward for you. And I would suggest, journaling what it is that you see. The more that you work with these, journal. Some of these just may be figments of your imagination popping forward. Maybe they don't mean anything at all. Others may actually mean something for you that you don't even realize right now. So if we just take the time to open up, to allow ourselves to sense with that shifted sight or hearing, we really may be surprised on what all that we can get. And what's wonderful about this too, one of the things that I love about helping people hone their God-given psychic abilities, their senses, their extrasensory senses, however you want to see it, is then we can start to gain more trust of ourselves. So often some of us may tend to look to other people for answers, for insight, for guidance, when I believe that all the answers we're looking for are inward. Even though there's videos like this on YouTube, different places that you can go to, if it ultimately brings you inside, so you can find that divine space within you to get those answers for you, then that's wonderful. The more we trust our own instincts, the more we trust what it is that we are receiving through these exercises, the more that maybe instead of going to our best friend, the next time something comes up, we'll sit a little bit longer with ourselves and ask ourselves what we want to do, what really feels right going forward. The body will tell you what feels right for you. Just like, again, going back to the analogy of driving to work and something just tells you, take a different road. If you were to stop in that moment and feel into what your body is telling you, you may feel a tension, a tightening. It may even be a bit of nausea. And then you take a different path and you have avoided whatever it was that would have hung you up. Again, we'll just say it was construction. And so you can avoid that. That, to me, is incredibly important for strengthening the trust within us. It doesn't mean that you don't still go to your friend and bounce ideas off, but when we can take a little more time with ourselves to build up that trust, that self-trust, it feels good. And ultimately what we're doing is empowering ourselves because we're trusting ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes, but it's all part of the process. Same thing if most of us, if not all of us, have experienced this. We're hungry. We open up the refrigerator. You're looking inside. You may look at the leftover pizza, for example, and you may say, "Oh, that doesn't sound good." Why doesn't that sound good? Does it really not sound good, or does it not feel good? You may, in that moment, realize that when you saw the pizza, your stomach just nodded. Your body's telling you, "I don't want that." But yet when you look over, I don't know, your spinach, maybe a salad sounds much more pleasing to you. So your body is responding. It's letting you know what feels right and what isn't, at least a good portion of the time, I would suggest. So again, if you want to build your different senses, and I just kind of give you a little tidbit for the clairvoyance about having a point, looking around. That's one of the things you can do. Music, listen for a few notes, a few seconds. Try to recreate it. Even with the smell or the taste, as I kind of touched on earlier, you can go back and remember Grandma's pasta. Can you still remember what it smelled like? Or maybe her favorite perfume, that whenever you smell this perfume, you can't help but to think of your grandmother. And then sometimes you walk in a room, nobody's in there, but you can smell her. To me, that's a gift. And I would just suggest that when these different things come up, if you say, "Wow, I wonder if that was Grandma," very well may have been. Letting you know that she's still watching over you. She's right there with you. So anyway, I hope this helped to give you some insight anyway, that, it is this shifted sense. If you're waiting for things to appear as though they're physical, you may be waiting a long time, because again, most of us see it as a shifted sense. So just trust yourself. If you choose to move forward, take it at your own pace. There are so many different, videos and books that can help you along the way. If you're close by, I have some classes here to help. But in the meantime, just those little baby steps. Start empowering yourself. Trust yourself. It's really kind of fascinating if nothing else. So thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Clairs. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can go to my website at soulspirational.com. You can email me, info@soulspirational.com. And otherwise, thanks again. Until next time, be well and namaste.